Our guest here is running for governor of California. He lives in California. And when he's hearing us talk about this story of rampant and really disgraceful fraud in Minneapolis, he says, "Oh, hold my beer, Minnesota. Let me tell you about a little place called California." Steve Hilton is with us now. Mr. Hilton, thanks for coming back.
Of course. Hey, but great to be with you. What a disaster. I mean, here's the point, right? You look at Minnesota and what's being revealed there. It is disgusting and shocking. But in California, everything is 1,000 times worse. First of all, we've had one-party rule for longer in California. In Minnesota, it's been 3 years. In California, 15 years. And it's this one-party rule that breeds this kind of corruption and an abuse of taxpayer trust. And then on top of that, we were the first state in California to have a statewide sanctuary policy. We are the home of the open borders insanity, and that ideology is still held deeply by the Democrats in charge here in California. You can see the way they're fighting the president on every aspect of his immigration agenda. And then you look at the fraud that we already know about in California, $20 billion in the pandemic for just the employment department, stolen by criminal gangs and people getting checks when they're on death row and all this nonsense. Then you have $24 billion, the state auditor revealed, lost on homelessness spending that ended up in the pockets of crony nonprofits and all this corruption there. And then you add to that, again, this is official money that shouldn't be being spent, $13 billion this year in the budget from Gavin Newsom for free health care for illegal immigrants that shouldn't even be here in the country. That's just my basic math. You don't even need Tim Waltz level accounting skills. That's $57 billion that we know about. And that's before you get into the rest of the bloated nanny state bureaucracy and welfare system here in California. So that's why this week I did two things. I set up a fraud hotline, a tip line, because you saw in Minnesota so many brave and honest state workers there trying to blow the whistle on all this for years, but being silenced and intimidated by Tim Walz and the Democrat machine. So I've set up a line, califraud.com, for state workers in California to tell us what's going on. And secondly, I've been in touch with Christine Noem, who made that shocking revelation at the cabinet meeting this week, that half of the visas that they looked at in Minnesota were fraudulent. I said, look, we need that kind of investigation here in California too. I wrote her a letter about that. I've been talking to senior leadership at DHS who agree with me that an investigation is warranted. So hopefully we can make some progress on exposing this kind of nonsense right here in California.
$24 billion spent in California, as you call it, on the homeless industrial complex. I mean, one thing that I remember seeing is Gavin Newsom, right when he became governor the first time, talking about how, I'm going to bring homelessness down to the lowest rates. And it's gone nothing but up. It's just the homelessness problem in California has only gotten worse since he has been in office. So what do they spend the $24 billion on?
Well, and actually, just to sort of underline the point, I think we're now in I lose track. I think it's the 22nd year of Gavin Newsom's plan to end homelessness in 10 years. I mean, it's just a joke. The money goes, as I said, into the pockets of there's the two big components of what we call the homeless industrial complex are crony nonprofits who pretend to solve the homelessness problem, but actually they're doing work that continues to let it continue without being addressed. So, for example, they're providing what they call permanent supportive housing. That is a euphemism for a home with no strings attached that costs a fortune. I've got friends who are, supporters of mine in the house building industry, building apartments, free of all the government nonsense and all the corruption attached to this. Here in California, they can build an apartment for, $250,000, $300,000 a door, as they call it. So that's the unit cost. The cost for these homeless industrial complex apartments, permanent supportive housing, $800,000, $900,000. Just now in San Francisco, in the Bay Area, $1 million. So it's 4 times the cost for exactly the same kind of building. Why? Because it's being eaten up in payments to the other component of it, not just the crony non-profits, but the crony affordable housing developers, all of whom are massive donors to Newsom and the Democrat politicians, both at the state level and locally, and they get these massively inflated contracts to build this stuff, and they're running away with the taxpayer money. And meanwhile, the problem gets worse because none of these units have any strings attached. So we know that 80% plus of people who are homeless have drug addiction or alcohol addiction, mental health problems. They get given these homes with no strings attached, so they end up back on the street, dealing drugs, using drugs. It's just a total disaster, all of it totally corrupt, and we've got to bring an end to it.
Speaking of building, I saw something where I think it was supposed to be a moment of congratulations in Los Angeles County, but Mayor Karen Bass, correct me if I'm wrong, they're applauding themselves because they just approved the first 4-bedroom house since the Palisades fire devastated whole neighborhoods, whole areas of Los Angeles. They've approved the 4-bedroom house to be rebuilt. Is that right?
Oh, Buck, I'm so glad you mentioned this. I literally was there yesterday afternoon. I walked right past it, made a little video. We'll be posting that, I think, over the weekend. So here's the deal. They trumpeted the first house fully rebuilt after the fire. What's the truth about this house? First of all, it's not a real house. It's a show home built by a developer. No one's ever going to live in it. Secondly, it was all approved and permitted before the fires.
Oh, my gosh.
The fires. The one thing that they didn't get was a permit for bulldozing what was on the property beforehand, but that took care of itself with the fires. Then they didn't need the permit. So the whole thing is a farce, and this is what they're trumpeting as a success. And just on the day when Newsom is in D.C. saying we need federal money, we need Trump's not giving us the support that we need, when it was Gavin Newsom, nearly a year ago now, who stood there in the smoldering debris of the Palisades fire and told NBC News, I put the video clip out again yesterday to remind people, I am developing a Marshall Plan. That's his quote, a Marshall Plan to rebuild LA. And they can barely do one house. I mean, this guy's a complete joke.
It's astonishing. We're speaking to Steve Hilton. He's running for governor in California. And I certainly hope you're able to continue to make a lot of noise about what's going on in that state, Steve, because it needs help. But I also wanted you to tell us your take on this. I'm sure you probably saw this. It got a little overshadowed by some other news stories this week, but I'll tell you what happened. Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania was asked about his portrayal in Kamala's awful book, 107 Days, which I will tell you, just because I got to take a bow for this one. I read so that somebody on this show, because I told Clay only one of us has to hop on this hand grenade. So I said I'll read it. So I read 107 Days. It was terrible. Felt like it was 107 days to read it. And she basically said Shapiro was arrogant, and this is in the whole VP race component of her campaign. I bring it up because Shapiro apparently just swatted this down with she's just trying to cover her behind, and she's an absolute train wreck, more or less. Is that I know that you and I feel that way because we can observe reality. Are Democrats pretty cold on Kamala in California?
Yes, they don't want to see her back in any kind of race. There was no support for her floating the idea of running for governor. The donors weren't behind it. The activists weren't behind it. They said, please, that's the last thing we want. So she even in her home state, for running for governor, there was no support for that. And you've got to believe Shapiro on this, because we see the pattern with people like Kamala Harris and with Gavin Newsom and with Biden. They're all the same. They're these machine politicians. They don't believe in anything. They'll say whatever is convenient to try and climb that political ladder and further their careers. They have no principles, no beliefs, no convictions, nothing. And that's why they end up saying totally different things, contradictory things all the time. They lie for a living. They are pathological liars. And so on this particular one, you got to assume that Shapiro's right. But there's no appetite for Kamala Harris here in California, just as there isn't across the country if she decides to run for president.
Are you already seeing, though, the early efforts by the Newsom for president campaign? Are you hearing the super fancy fundraisers in Malibu? Are they going to be getting the hors d'oeuvres ready here in short order? What can you tell us about those machinations?
Well, not so much in Malibu because they haven't been able to rebuild their homes in Malibu.
Oh,
That's
whoops.
probably
Yeah,
worse.
I forgot
No,
about
I'm
that.
joking.
Sorry. Somewhere else
Exactly.
where they're fancy. Beverly Hills.
Exactly. You've got to build the luxury mansions back before you do that. Look, I don't know. You're definitely certainly he's in a different category to Kamala. They believe he's a winner. They really do. They think that he's the guy. They are lining up behind him. I'm hearing that definitely from the donor community in California. They're going to be proud and excited to support him. So, watch out, America. The worst, and as I call him, mugger, the most useless governor in America. He's coming your way to try and replicate on the national stage what he's done here in California, which is the worst results in the country, the highest gas prices, highest electric bills, highest unemployment rate, highest poverty rate, highest cost for everything that matters. 50th out of 50 states on affordability, 50th out of 50 states on opportunity. And this guy thinks, can I just tell you one last story if we have time?
Yeah,
this
sure.
hasn't got much attention. This just came to light. It's such a Newsom classic. So just nearly 7 years ago, in his first budget as governor, he made a huge fuss about the fact that the state's emergency communication system was antiquated, analog, total disaster, not fit for purpose if there are fires or an earthquake. He was going to modernize the whole thing. So here's what was announced this week. In the intervening nearly 7 years, they have spent $500 million on this essentially a new phone line. And at the end of it all, it doesn't work at all, and they've just announced that they're scrapping the whole thing. This guy, for $500 million, can't even produce a working phone line, and he wants to be president. I mean, it's just such a joke.
I saw that your possible competition here, I don't think she's announced yet, but people on the Democrat side talk about Katie Porter, but her numbers are looking a little shaky because the more people know about Katie Porter, it seems, the less they want to support Katie Porter for governor of California.
Well, funny enough, I'm just in San Jose today. I was just literally on the debates, not really a debate, they call it a candidates forum with Katie Porter and a couple of the others, including billionaire climate fanatic Tom Steyer, who I had great fun pointing out is one of the main architects of the fact that everything's so expensive in California. So she's still in the race. Her numbers are down a little bit, but not collapsed at all. But the new entrant that we're all very excited to see what happens with is our friend Eric Swalwell, who's now running. And so, as I say often, I can't decide who I'd rather face in the general election: Katie Porter with the endless opportunity for mashed potato jokes, or Eric with the endless opportunity for fang jokes. I don't know which to choose in terms of my preference.
Amazing stuff. Thank you so much for being with us, Steve. What's your website for governor?
SteveHiltonforGovernor.com, FOR. SteveHiltonforGovernor.com. We've got to beat this Democrat machine, so any help with that, gratefully received. Thank you, Buck.
Good to see you. Got to beat that machine. All right, if you got sports smarts like our buddy Clay, you want to be putting that to good use on the Prize Picks app. On Prize Picks, you can pick from dozens of projections on player performance and choose 2 or more to test your knowledge. If your projections are correct, you're going to make a lot of money. Get started today on Prize Picks. Download the app. Get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. With millions of members and billions of dollars awarded in winnings, Prize Picks is the best place to put your player knowledge to the test. Prize Picks is all about the players and their performance. The app is simple to use. Just pick 2 or more players across any sport. Pick more or less based on their projection, and if you're right, you could cash in. Prize Picks available in 40-plus states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. When you download the Prize Picks app, use my name, Buck, as your code. Get $50 instantly in lineups when you play $5. That's code BUCK on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly in lineups when you play $5. Win or lose, you get $50 in lineups just for playing guaranteed. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.